Hey everyone, Nupkasu here. We are back with another video. So today we have updates on this new upcoming games launch on this month, which is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and also got these latest PC requirements. And the final update we got is this is a Steam Deck verified. So pre-purchasing this game, you will get this 30% off on the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and also integrate while you have the support of Steam Deck verified, because it has been tweeted on 17th January like Final Fantasy Rebirth and Remake Integrate are both Steam Deck verified now, so you can play this game on Steam Deck. And let's get to the PC requirements. So PC requirements has been released earlier on, but while it's not updating, I don't know, because there is nowhere to be known by the DLSS or frame generations requirement to be noted here, because all I can see is the minimum recommended and ultra for the 4K resolutions 1080p and 1080p 30 to 60 FPS. So for the minimum requirements, 30 FPS 1080p, which should be a low settings quality, i3 8th generations, which kind of in the good requirements. Generally the people now have i5 10 to 11 or 13th gen, and AMD 5 3rd generations. Nobody has a 1st gen, so it's quite a bit of an old kind of requirement, but still fine, you can take this off. The requirements is pretty fine from the CPU side, but the GPU side is RX 6600X, 6600, not the X, which is Intel Arc A580 and NVIDIA RTX 2060. While if you can look into that, there is an AMD RX 6600 or later model required, or G4 RTX series or later model required. So later model required, that means what? It means after the 2060 you can go on for that, but it has a 16 gigs of memory RAM, not the VRAM, which is totally different from the GPU, and the storage is 155 heavy gigs of SSD is requirement. And there is a note that GPU memory of 12 gigs or greater recommended if a 4K monitor is used. Graphics card supporting shader model 6.6 or later version of OS supporting DirectX 12 Ultimate required. So quite a bit of sure you will be get supported for these RX 6600 and RTX 2060 and later models. Well, Intel Arc A580, which is totally an 8 gigs of VRAM. If you want to go for these comparisons, we totally go for the Tech Power Up sites, where we can have set up the relative GPU, where usually we can set up the relative graphics card name, which is RX 6600, which is 7nm processors, and Navi 23 graphics processor, which supports DirectX 12 as well. While the other systems which is totally on these PC requirements, we'll look into this. So RX 6600, if I just put the base 100% and take all this AMD Arc A50, 580 is just above that, which is 96%. Quite a bit of through 3 to 4 5 FPS you will be there will be difference to observe, while RTX 2060 can be it will be outperformed by RX 6600, which is 92% if I set the base version of RX 6600. So 8% lower than RX 6600. 2060 will perform the less than I can say 5 to 7 FPS, because 8% doesn't make any differences to observe. While if I go to the recommended versions, which has the 60 FPS 1080p medium quality graphics setting, so there's also not mentioned that if you are going for the 12 GB or greater recommended if you are using a 4K monitor, but all along that Windows 11 required, while minimum settings there's Windows 10 version is supported. While there's a bunch of an CPU requirement is there, which is quite a bit of fine varieties has been not only updated on this, which is AMD Ryzen 5 5th gen, AMD Ryzen 7 3rd gen X, and Intel Core i7 8700 and Intel iCore i5 10th gen. So These are totally the latest requirement. I think everybody should have this kind of 5th gen and 3rd gen, and from the Intel there should be in a 10th gen of every i7 or i5 will be there in the PC. While if I check these GPU sections, which is 6700 XT from the AMD Radeon RX and NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2070, so there is quite of, I think, misunderstanding or something, or maybe they have not updated. But if I look into this 6600X as a base version, so there will be a 2070 just below that. After the 2060 there is just 105% increased performance while you are using the medium settings. So I don't think a medium settings can provide this kind of performance, while there is only 5%, so 2-3 more FPS you won't get in the medium settings. If you go for the 6700, which is the recommended one, 6700 XT, so there will be a huge performance spike. So it will be 142% of performance. So if you take this 100%, so 42% is quite above. You will get for 10 to 20 FPS even more. So in comparison, RX 6700 XT and 2070, so there will be a lot of differences on these performance issues. So I don't think so that it will go like the equal amount of performance from RX 2070 and 6700 XT, while there should be something more related to that. If I'm going to the RX 6700 XTs, and this will go for the 3060 Ti. If I'm going to compare with this, if I need to compare with this, then we should go for the RX 3060 Ti. This will be the performance. So if still we are going for this, but if we go for the RX 4060 8 gigs of VRAM, then we can compare with this RX 6700 XT. So if we comparing this one, we need to go for the RX 4060 Ti for that. That will be a pretty good comparison with that. But this will be the latest card, so everybody should has is the RX either 2060, 2070 or 3060 or 3060 Ti. So this will be the one, or RX 3070 graphics card, which will be the great performance comparison between RX 6700 XT and NVIDIA RTX 3070. But I don't know, there is still more upgrades need to be done in this PC requirement, but still the same, there is no update from their websites. So the RAM will be the recommended the 16 gigs as well, while the storage is 155 of SSDs. So these are requirements. And for the ultra 4K high resolutions and 60 FPS, so Windows 11 is always recommended, and AMD Ryzen 7 5700X. So these are the 3D cache available, or maybe said infinite cache, AMD cache available for these CPUs, while Intel Core i7 10th gen 700, which is more than 8 to 8 cores and 16 threads. So these kind of multi-core performance will be there for these CPUs, while from the graphics GPU sides, which has RX 7900 and XTX and NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4080, while the RAM is 16 gigs and memory will be 155 gigs of SSD. So graphics standpoint is RX 7900 and XTX and RX 4080, which is the latest release of card. This not a late one if I compare with the 6600 NX comparison. So there will be a 4080, like this is a 310%, way more than that if I'm going for the 4K resolution. So that's a huge spike in this performance, while 7900 and XTX, which will be ahead 17% from RTX 4080. So there is a spike, but still you will get this 60 FPS stable on the 4K, while if you can go for the 1080p, this will be in ultra settings as well. And also if you are using the 4080, there will be more advantage above than these 7900 and XTX, which is the DLSS and the frame generations. And also if you are using RX 7900 XTX, so there will be a huge advantage of the raw performance. So what you will be extracting a raw performance from 7900 and XTX, it will be huge than the RTX 4080 from the Nvidia. So if you are a fan of the raw performance and the crisp clear images, then you will definitely have the better performance in Radeon RX 7900 XTX. While if you want some more FPS and some more upscaling, then you can get the performance on the RTX 4080 from the GeForce. So these are the graphics cards which will have like 24 gigs of VRAM, while RTX 4080 you will be having a 16 gigs of VRAM. So 7900 XT you will get the 24 gigs of VRAM. So there is a huge advantage of VRAM. So you will get a better performance than RTX 4080. So the current gen of games are totally demanding the VRAM, but they are just optimizing with these softwares. But all we know is your hardware is not capable of extracting all these frames and renderings and graphics and shadows and all the occlusions and ambient occlusions. These all these, they can't render by your hardware. The software cannot make a huge differences in the FPS or rendering or graphical performance, or maybe not will be reducing the shimmering and artifacts and the latencies. So this is the huge disadvantage from the VRAM perspective, but all along if you have the upscaling and all that, there is a slight bit of chances that it can push some limits to have a better performance if you are having these 4080 and have the less VRAM, and still your graphics card is supporting the DLSS and frame generations. So these are the graphical requirements from these Final Fantasy 17, and also it has been verified that it will be available for Steam Deck as well. So Steam Deck has verified, so always they have supported all these games promotions as well. They are totally releasing the videos constantly and frequently about this, how the settings will look like from the low, medium and ultra settings. So there is less issue you can notice on this graphics, while minimum settings you can get all this smoothness and blurriness along this graphics, while there will be more sharpness in the recommended one, and ultra will have the more foliage, more shadows and more soft shadows and the clear skin textures and model textures and ambient textures from the classes and all that stuff. So these are the requirements from these games, and it will be available on 23rd Jan 2025. So you can pre-purchase on this game of 30% off, $3,359, almost like a $30 to $35, while you can get all this at 30% off, which you will get these Rebirth from the Final Fantasy 7, and also you can get the Final Fantasy 7 Integrate Remake, which is 30% off, $4,829, almost like a $50. You can get both games same time, which will be supported for the Steam Deck as well. So these will be recommended, as it will be greater experience from this controller, because the developers has recommended playing this game with a controller because of the DualSense technologies, and they have literally integrated the DualSense vibrations and all that stuff from the cinematic perspective and all the games play perspective, so which will feels more immersive while you are playing. So that's great from their developer sides. So that's all from my side, which is from this Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, which is releasing 23rd Jan. So you will get this RPG action adventure single player JRPG. I think this is the great award winning as well, which has the best score and music winner. And also from the story perspective, Rebirth has the better stories. So that's all from my side. I'll bring back the new videos and updates related to games. So I'll meet you in the next video. So thank you for watching. See you. Peace out.
Yeah, boy.